have is Dr. Uma Purighalla, and the topic you already know. She's going to talk about the benefits of Ayurveda and healthy eating. Dr. Uma Purighalla doesn't need any introduction, everybody knows her. She has been doing a wonderful job uh, teaching a lot of people like us how to eat healthy and how to be fit. So, Dr. Purighalla, I want to ask my co-chair. This year I'm the chairperson for Education Committee, and that's my co-chair, Lakshmi Shekhar. All the volunteers, they were here to help set it up so that we can have a good talk, and we are really, really eager to listen here. Thank you.
Wait to talk to you.
I don't know to say that yet. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Do I put that?
So yeah, I started with internal medicine and I practiced for 24 years. And
I have certification in Kerala Ayurveda Academy. It's in California as a health coach. And I'm furthering my
certification, my degree, because I fell in love with Ayurveda. And I teach yoga. So let's go ahead and begin with this Lord Dhanvantari
prayer. Om Namo Bhagavate Mahasudarshanaya Vasudevaya Dhanvantaraye Amrita Kalashahastaya Sarvavaya Vinashaya Sarvaroga Nivaranaya Trilokya Pataye Trilokya Nitaye
Sri Mahavishnu Swarupa Shri Dhanvantari Swarupa Sri 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 Aushadha Chakra Narayanaya Swaha.
We pray to the Lord,
who is known as Sudarshana Vasudev Dhanvantari. He holds the kalasha of the nectar of immortality. Lord Dhanvantari removes all fears and diseases. He is the well-wisher and the preserver of the three worlds. Dhanvantari is a form of Lord Vishnu, empowered to heal everyone. We bow down to him, to the Lord of Ayurveda.
So, this is my website. I do have cards, and you're more than welcome to take a picture of the QR code of what I offer regarding Ayurveda counseling and teaching yoga. I do teach every Saturday at the Amarnath Chinmay Temple at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I teach on Sundays to the little kids at the Pragna and the Stoically Franklin Elementary School, which I love. So, of course, please stick around afterwards to just sample some of the foods. And my target here for why I cooked these samples is not to say that diet is all size, one size fits all.
Because in Ayurveda, it definitely is not. So one man's
food can be another man's poison. But there is something that connects all of us in this room on what we shouldn't eat.
And all of us in the world on what we shouldn't eat. And so at least I'm targeting that. Because for some of you, this might not be spicy enough. For some of you, it's too spicy.
For some of you, it has some nuts. But what it doesn't have that we don't need
is processed oil. I'm here to show us how we can stop cooking with these bean and seed oils that I believe, and as I hope the science will show, is killing us. Not just us, but humanity, but in particular South Asians. And how can we change our traditional delicious recipes so that we're getting the right amount of fat and the fat that is good quality. Because right now what we're doing,
I believe, is really dangerous. So if you're interested, because I would love for us to start a movement, right? And I am doing a cooking class online next Sunday. It's at 7 p.m. And it's going to be an hour, so the first half is a little didactic. The
second part is like a cooking demonstration about the Matar Paneer. I hope you like it. Then the last part will be Q&A. So I'm trying to keep it small. So yes, I am charging $10 to register. But that's really so that if you reserve a spot, that you're not going to, take it up for somebody else. Because I want to keep this only like 20 people, so that we can have a conversation. We can start a movement within our community.
So is it possible to use modern science and our ancient wisdom to make us a blue zone society?
Why not? Why can't Indians be one of the healthiest, longest lived people on the planet?
It's a good thing to compete for. So,
in Ayurveda, food has to have high prana. We know that, good energy, but we should be able to digest it and absorb it. Otherwise, even that can be poisonous.
But every time we eat,
is the food giving us energy so we want to walk up a hill, or are we feeling
tamasic?
So that tells us,
are we digesting the right foods, and are we eating them at the right time? So this, part of avoiding addictive foods and processed foods, it really matters, and it matters a lot for even our spirituality. So, here we have the front of labels
really deceives us. A lot of us, fall for the trick that the breakfast bars are really healthy. But let's just do an experiment. They're about the same calories.
But if you're starving and you didn't eat anything for 2 days and you have to climb up a mountain 2 hours from now,
how many of the breakfast bars could you eat? Like, I could eat a whole box. I could eat 1,000 calories and I still wouldn't climb up the mountain because of the seed oils and, you said the sugars and everything, but really more of the seed oils. Versus the oatmeal that I made in 2 minutes in my rice cooker. I can't overdose on that, but it will help me climb up the mountain. So that's kind of what a high pranic food is. So there is a lot of confusion. Should we go vegan, vegetarian? Should we eat high meat, paleo? We're drowning
in information. But I feel like the greatest teachers in my life have been my patients. The patients that got sick told me what not to do. And the handful of patients who reversed their disease and grew older, they taught me a lot too. And
there have been a handful of Indian patients who have taught me how to reverse the disease. In fact, one of the ladies who's going to be in the Q&A for next Sunday's webinar, she reversed her diabetes. She's a medical professional.
You probably know her, and I don't want to put her family on the spot, but she and one of her family members reversed,
diabetes and hypertension, and did it in a beautiful way. They love to cook, and they love to eat.
But it is doable, and there are some people who can do pranayama, but that's not gonna reverse their asthma. Maybe some people have siddhis and they can eat a certain way and still meditate and do the yoga, but I certainly can't do it.
It's got to be the food. And then the other thing that I was taught is
the people who succeed are the ones who have this attitude, like they're gardening, right? It's not a chore like, oh, I have to do this diet. If you're at that stage and you're not looking at like a garden where every day you're attending to it, and every day you're plucking out those weeds, and you love how the sun hits you when you're problem solving, that is a lifestyle that will really give you success. So this teaches me a lot too. I'm not so much of a fan of little minute studies, but when I look at huge populations of people over hundreds and hundreds of years that have been studied.
And they are eating away. I'm going to pay attention to them.
So we see Okinawa, Japan. Okinawa, Japan, as many of you might know, is a blue zone of health and longevity. They live to be in their hundreds. They're strong. They do yoga. They practice Ayurveda. I think, this is my suspicion, is they must have retained in maybe the previous yoga a lot of Vedic concepts, because this island is doing them phenomenally. So if you look at their
eating, their chart, it's not a low-carb diet.
It's not a low-carb diet, right? Purple sweet potatoes, they ate brown rice.
Legumes, hardly any oil.
And they did have some meat. They liked their pork. It was once a month. Fish was a garnishing. But it wasn't a low-carb diet. And if you look at any of the serious published data, This is the only eating style that reverses really bad disease. You don't see the paleo group showing this and publishing it. You see the whole food, plant-based, high carb, no oil, no oil, no oil. So Dean Ornish did it with these sick patients with cardiovascular disease. So did Caldwell Esselstyn in Cleveland Clinic. Walter Kempner in the 1940s, he was at Duke University up until 2000, and he was reversing people with end-stage kidney disease. Like famous actors and actresses would come, and in a year they'd leave like they were brand new. He presented his information to the New York Academy of Science, so he documented really well. But, you know, if you look at his diet, it was white rice, fruit juice, and fruit. He got rid of all animal products, all fats, all dairy products. Now, no one is saying this is a diet that you should follow for your life. This is a tool. I'm just proving a point that he's using carbohydrates, he didn't use oils, to clean up something in the system, right? You don't see anybody putting anybody on a high fried food, high oil diet to show this. But it is definitely not a diet that you would be on lifelong. But I'm going to put a monkey wrench in what I'm saying to be fair, right? Because it doesn't have all the answers. If you look at the Amish, they enjoy health. They enjoy longevity. And clearly they're not low carb and they're not, you know, vegan. They're clearly not. But they milk their cows and they build their houses and their source of food is clean. And if you look at French cooking and you look at Julia Childs, she lived to be in her 90s. And my suspicion is that they say that the French were able to enjoy this kind of higher fat diet and longevity because they portion control. And I don't think it was because the French were somehow much more disciplined. It's just that the quality of their fat was so good. When they ate, they had satiety, right? If I have a oily French fries, I'm not going to get satiety the way a French person's going to get satiety with their clean eating. So I think Ayurveda has it correct. There is, you know, all these blind men are right and all of them are wrong. So with regards to diet, they're all right and they're all wrong. It depends, according to Ayurveda, it depends on who you are as to what kind of eating plan you should have. So that is what I love about the Ayurveda. I absolutely am convinced Lord Dhanvantari is a mathematician, he is an artist. And the algorithms, God bless you, the algorithms that are used in Ayurveda are like fractal patterns. They're like these mathematical concepts that are stable. But our situations change, right? We're no longer Indians in India 200 years ago, where we're getting our groundnut oil made in a certain way, right? We are, even if we're living in India, we're doing this in an air-conditioned environment all day. We cannot hold on to certain cooking traditions because in Ayurveda they would say, no, that's a no-no, right? You have to change you have to choose a different algorithm amongst what Lord Dhanvantari is saying. So we definitely have to change it. And once we get rid of our addictive ways, it's not so complicated. Your body is going to tell you when you're going to want protein, when you're going to want fat. You don't need any special tests to do that. It's just like the animals in nature. They know when to go to the watering hole. They know when to, eat whatever they have to eat. When I was eating clean, when I was in my 40s, I was whole food, plant-based, almost raw vegan, and I felt great. But suddenly my body was telling me, I kept on dreaming of cheese and everything, and I kept on even thinking of eggs, and that's so unlike me. So my body was telling me, you need more fat because you're getting older and you have more vata dosha, which we'll talk about soon. So just like that, you really don't need so much technology to figure out what to eat when you're eating clean. So my father said, Tali, keep it simple, stupid. And I really do try to stick with that game plan. So there's lots of recommendations that we could go chase after on a healthy diet. Let's say we all think, oh, microwaving's bad. We should stop microwaving. Let's say we stop microwaving, but we're still cooking with Pennzoil. Did we make a big change? Or let's say I'm going to use cultured ghee only, and I'm not going to use the regular kind of ghee, but I still cook with Penn's oil. You know,
The middle thing, the oil part, I'm going to argue for is the biggest thing that we have got to get
out of our lives as a humanity, and we have to find our good quality fat from something different. So a little bit about where are we as a community of South Asians? How did we get here very quickly? And then what can we do more importantly? I want to spend more time on that. So quickly, both American Heart Association, American College of Cardiology say we are #1 in cardiovascular disease. I'm not going to belabor that point. Everybody has a story in their family about that. And when we get heart disease, it's at a younger age and we are much more sick. And it's growing amongst women. We are 7.5% prevalence in heart disease in this country, and the average is 2.5%. And, you know, diabetes,
I'm not going to belabor that point. It's a huge risk for us. Indian immigrants, 12 to 14%, and generally non-Indians,
5.3. And this is the typical salad we have: high triglycerides, low HDL, normal, low cholesterol. And people are like, oh, you're so lucky you can do yoga and this, that, and the other. I wasn't born with that. It was a garden you have to culture. I had this. I had the high C-reactive protein. I had all of this stuff. And it can change and life can be beautiful. And this spills over, you know, because we are inflamed inside. It spills over into cancer risks, Alzheimer's, you know, autoimmune. And I mean, this is what my father's cardiac catheterization looked like. It looked like angel hair pasta, very diffuse disease, very narrow everywhere. And this is kind of what a non-Asians would look like, right? Maybe 1 or 2 vessels that they roto-rooter, put a stent, save their lives, great. And, you know, our little orange dense LDL. So yeah, our LDLs are nice and normal or low, but they're really inflamed and dense versus those little fluffy, bouncy LDLs. And, you know, we look pretty thin, pretty good if you put a shirt on us, right? But, you know, the BMIs, what I usually tell patients is focus more on waist, hip circumference. And I'm going to pick on me. I am what I call skinny fat, right? Skinny arms, skinny legs, but the equator, I've got to be very careful with that.
And so for a woman, the waist to hip should be 0.8, and for a man it should be,
you know, 1 to 1. So I wouldn't pay that much attention to
the BMI.
But it still is important. So how did we get here? I love the British. I'm not, you know, like it is what it is. Under British rule, there was pretty harsh economic practices. So our grandfathers, great-grandfathers,
food was scarce. It was, they went into starvation adaptation. Also, Ayurveda was pretty prohibited, which is really strange because all the Westerners are doing yoga and all my fellow students are Westerners and they're just, you know, really enjoying Ayurveda. So,
okay, so we have our grandfathers, great-grandfathers going, and mothers, grandmothers, great-grandmothers going through starvation adaptation, which is what they found, you know, through the Irish potato famine and Chinese famines and Indian famines. When they go through this, they bequeath their starvation adaptation to the second and the third generations. So we get also that problem. And I want to just kind of park over here.
You know, if we think about, I'm going to
give my grandfather as an example. I know all of us have these wonderful stories. My grandfather lived in a cow shed when he was 5, and his mother was widowed at a young age. He was one of 3 siblings, and she did not know how to count, and she did not know how to read, and she'd look at those coins, and every day she was crying, and she's like, she knew that she was being cheated out of, you know, how much money she had to buy food. And that little boy, my grandfather, looked at her and he said, I'm going to learn math. And so he became a famous mathematician, went to Oxford. And I'm very proud to say he taught the great C.R. Rao. And the great Dr. C.R. Rao
I can fondly remember my grandfather. But that is, I know we all have those stories. That is where we're coming from. We're coming from their blood, sweat, and tears. And here we have a new battle, right? We are succeeding, right? We're smart, we're cultured, we're brilliant.
But we can't handle the excess, right? This could be in a restaurant at 8 o'clock at night, or it could be at home. But
we have a new battle now
to bequeath to our ancestors, our next community. And that battle is, I believe it to be the food.
Right, what we're putting
inside as a yajna.
And so this is my battleground right here. The difference between us and the rest of the world is we do this all the time. This is our main form of cooking, even if we're doing curries, right? If I make one Thai curry the old way, that drinks up a lot of oil to make the texture right, and so nobody get angry at me. You got to put half a bottle in there. There are other ways to get the texture right, I believe. But this is very toxic. So, we've been brainwashed to believe that these vegetable oils are so heart healthy. But there's enough correlations to suggest that 1 teaspoon of these oils is the equivalent to smoking 2 cigarettes a day. And so how many cigarettes do you smoke? So you don't have to shop at Whole Foods, but I shop everywhere. But
all these bean and seed oils, which we're going to talk about, are in everything, even the things that are labeled as healthy. So it strongly suggests turn the label over and make sure there's no oil in there.
And I'm not saying, sometimes you have to cheat, right? When we go to a wedding celebration, when we go and have a laddu, sure, accept that, enjoy it. But I'm just talking about what we should do at home. Let's shoot for like 90%, 95,
90. So,
let's go back to the ghee. I don't think ghee is for everybody, but I put it back on my table. Could Lord Dhanvantari have been so wrong? Is ghee such a poison that, in the churning of the Milky Ocean, we've got the Ayurveda and the knowledge of ghee. Is it really gives me satiety? It is, in the measured amounts, it gives me satiety. So let's look at this beautiful plate
and see where is our fat coming from. Well, let's see, it's coming from the fried papad. Probably there will be a puri. It's coming from the fried banana chips, the fried water. And if we're vegetarian, for the vegetarians of us, we're going to eat more of the fried stuff because there was no steamed chicken on the plate. You see what I'm saying?
Let's say, for argument's sake, the person who prepared this made it with pennzoil. Is anybody going to eat this?
Right. It's made with pennzoil. And I don't think I'm taking a poetic license to say
the things that we're buying on the shelf are not what our ancestors made. This is pennzoil.
It's to take canola, you have to take a plant that is not edible to human beings, and then you have to process it under high heat, and then you bleach it because it stinks, and then you deodorize it, and you degum it, and if you want to make it have a high heat point, because that's the catchphrase now, you have to really pressurize it and heat it, and
then it looks really pretty. I would go on to food science magazines, how they make this stuff, rather than
what the medical profession is saying. Just investigate, how are your oils made? And it looks very pretty, and there's no, here's a few studies that, yes, when we eat these oils, our cholesterol gets lower, but we have higher rates of not heart disease, equal rates of heart disease, but higher rates of cancer and inflammation.
What about avocado oil?
So
there are studies to show that that most of these oils are cut with cheap bean and seed oil. It's not avocado oil.
If you make avocado oil on your own, take a good avocado, that will run you $1 to $3 an avocado. How many avocados would it take to make that avocado oil? That would probably cost $300, maybe $200 if it really was. Olive oil, same thing. University of California, Davis
studied that the majority of these oils are cut with cheaper oils because it's not really regulated.
So, and too much of any fat is the driver for insulin. So it blocks up the insulin receptors. And so that when you eat a carb, you can't really get the energy into your cell. So if you're interested in exercising, doing yoga, it's really important to change the fuel. It's like this: if you put diesel fuel into this car, it's not going to run. You have to put gasoline, and so you have to put the right fuel into your body. So I
put this on my webpage. Just, I don't want to focus too much on this, but
definitely get your B12 and your vitamin D level checked, because a lot of people are low on that amongst our population, and it causes inflammation, cancer, and a whole bunch of other stuff.
I mean, this is me. Like, I had low B12, low vitamin D, high C-reactive protein, all of that stuff.
And it's doable. So here's another teacher of mine, this group. These are the Seventh-day Adventists. This is a Methodist religion, and they are one of the healthiest, longest-lived people on the planet. And they are racially diverse, and the majority of them live in California, but they're everywhere. And they take their food like a sadhana. Their food has to be clean. They really push the vegan ticket.
Not everybody is whole food plant-based vegan, but they really push the plant-based thing.
And they are showing the whole world how it's done. And I think we can do better. Why not?
What about the Finns, Finland? In the 1970s, they were a really sick group of people. They had strokes and they had heart attacks because they loved frying their sausages. And they took a critical look at their diet and decided, we're going to turn many of our dairy farmers into berry farmers. We're not going to fry so much. And now they enjoy the greatest health amongst the Northern Europeans. This is doable. We cannot believe it's our genetics alone, maybe 20%, right? The Danish twin studies have shown that you take identical twins and they're adopted and they go to separate places. They don't get the same chronic diseases, and it depends on their lifestyle.
And I've always wondered why Kerala has a little bit longer longevity. Maybe it's because they practice more
Ayurveda. I don't know, but I just put it out there. And this is me in college. So because I'm a vegetarian, my friend might have been eating mashed potatoes and something, but because I'm hungry, I'm eating those fries, or I'm going to take extra Dorito chips. So we need to get our kids to learn how to use an Instant Pot so that they can have curd afterwards, depending on their dosha type. But this is a survival tool, especially for vegetarians.
And so Sri B.K.S. Iyengar,
he brought yoga to the West. He wasn't born like this. He had terrible asthma as a youth. And his brother-in-law, who was a great Vaidya and a yogi, he changed his diet, taught him yoga. He lived to be in his mid-90s doing these poses.
We can do this.
And then this is his guru. This is Sri Krishnamacharya. He lived to be 101. His life story is incredible, how much love and dedication he had
to genuine healing. But Sri B.K.S. Iyengar's student was Portian Lynch. She's half French, half Indian. She lived in Pondicherry. She was doing poses like this. This is our potential.
My Ayurvedic teachers, they tell me,
with health, doing the right dinacharya, your peak performance should be in your 60s. And I started yoga at the tender age of 45. That was 10 years ago. So don't think it's too late.
I always joke about that, but it makes me happy to know that maybe we can become like her. I don't know.
Yata Pinde Tata Brahmande. So here's Lord Dhanvantari's fractal universe. In Ayurveda, they didn't study every single molecule in a lab. They downloaded these
mathematical fractal wisdoms from Bhagavan. So it's believed, Ayurveda to me is timeless. Probably you believe that too. It's beyond space and time, and it was downloaded to meditative rishis.
And it's not absurd to think that. I mean, Mozart, he got downloads, right, at the age of 5. Srinivasa Ramanujan, he had no formal training in math. He got downloads. So
I do believe that this
science came from somewhere else that we should be really seriously looking at and imbibing. So even Einstein, he credits his theories to when he was in these almost alpha states where he was playing music or listening to music. So it came from somewhere else. So this is Sri Shushruta, a great Ayurvedic surgeon. He was doing amazing surgeries back then, and even in Western plastic surgery textbooks, they do acknowledge at least that. They call this Ayurveda pseudoscience, but they at least acknowledge that they learned this skin flap method to reconstructing the, if somebody's nose was chopped off. They do credit it to the Indian method. It's a very beautiful, intricate system. But, that's the difference between the two plates. One is just fried, and one is steamed. And I think that's what they used to do. They used to take these big vessels, put mud around them, and then put the food, steam it, put the cow dung patties. We can't do that, of course. So I believe in, MacGyvering and using quick hacks to cook. But so where do we get our fat, especially if we're trying to keep animal products lower? Coconut meat, avocado. To put that on the plate, it will give you satiety so that you don't have munchies later. Sesame paste, if you tolerate it, or cashew paste here and there, depending on your dosha. For me, I did put ghee back on my table, and I'm glad I did. It's very suitable. It has a naturally high heat point, and it's so easy to make. And it's good for the gut bacteria. Yes, there are some oils like avocado, safflower, mustard that have a little higher heat point, but again, you don't know what you're getting when you buy that stuff. And when they boast those high heat points, they've artificially processed them to have high heat points, and so it's really much more toxic. Come on in, you're missing the fun. Okay. And ghee is really good food for the gut bacteria in our intestines. And to make sure that we're getting some kind of omega-3 fatty acid, I prefer, instead of the pill, the algae pill, make a chia seed paisam pudding. Or maybe make a flaxseed laddu with coconut, date, cardamom, and ground flaxseed. Or if you're going to make oatmeal in your rice cooker, put some, handful of walnuts. Don't do too much because then your blood will get too thin. So it's always about balance. So let's move on to, because I think I talked about this. This is more of a food talk. I'll put this on my website. These are the typical things I would recommend you get blood work for, especially C-reactive protein, B12, and vitamin D, because sometimes you have to pay for that. It's not covered by your insurance sometimes, but I think it's really worth it to get. I never really did all the other fancy tests because the insurance companies don't cover it, and I think that's between you and your specialist anyways. For me, I like the cheap technology. Am I apple-shaped or am I pear-shaped? I am apple-shaped. A lot of us Indians are apple-shaped, and that's, as you might know, is a risk factor. It's a higher risk factor for heart disease. Acanthosis nigricans, it's an indicator of metabolic imbalance. I know that when my diet's bad, the dark areas in my neck, under my eyes and my elbows, they get darker. So that's my fancy test. So let's we have lots of opportunities to still enjoy our food without the oil. So if I'm making a purighalla, I can eat purighalla outside and I'll enjoy it. I'm talking about stuff we do at home, right? 90%. So I won't use any oil. I might temper the spices with like a little bit of ghee, and then I'll cook it in a way where they don't stick together. Make it very spicy, maybe put some nuts, but that still won't give me satiety. So I'll probably have, I don't know what you would call what is the sundal? Okay. So I might add avocado to it and some coconut, again, to give satiety. That kosamri is a nice thing to put on the side. But so I made butter paneer, and I made butter paneer with baking tofu. And instead of dairy, I did use a little cashew paste. I used the same spices. And I'm not saying here that you must do it my way. The whole thing that brings us together is the chicken pieces that you steam, that's fine. But I'm just saying that I use my oven and I use dry roasting on the pan and I stayed away from oil and I will put my own amount of ghee later on that I need. And, you know, sambar sadam is easy, idlis are easy, chutneys are easy to do.
So before we go further with that, I do want to talk about some Ayurvedic techniques that we should all follow that's common to us. So if we stuff this washer or dryer completely, we know that we're
Gonna, like, the clothes are not gonna get cleaned properly.
so in Ayurveda they say fill your tummy 2/3 full, right? Same thing. And if we put dirty jeans in the middle of the rinse and spin cycle, we know we'd never do that because that would be a mess. But we do it nowadays, right? The right muhurtam to eat your heaviest meal is lunchtime, and you know usually ours is like late, right? It's 8 o'clock, and it is really carcinogenic to do. It's toxic. It causes mental issues, makes people feel tamasic. So this is probably beyond our scope. So how are you in the realm of Ayurveda? So you might know about the Pancha Mahabhutas, right? The 5 components of our known universe. We all are composed of Akash, which is space. We are all composed of Vayu, which is air. And if we break these air molecules,
We get Agni, right, a nuclear reaction, we get static electricity.
we are fire. We have water. So our chemistry class, we taught that when you light a fire, water condenses. So Ayurveda is so like precise. And then from Apa, we get Prithvi. So those are all that we are composed of, our body-mind complex. And they combine to form different doshas, right? Vata, Pitta, Kapha. And all of us have Vata, Pitta, Kapha to different degrees, right? So Vata is airspace. It's like Antarctica. It's the thing that's dry, it's cool, it's mobile, it's light. Pitta is like a tropical forest with a volcano. It's like steam, fire, it's mobile, powerful, light. And then Kapha is like mud, cold mud. It's heavy, it's dense, it's stable. There are good qualities and not so good qualities about all these doshas. So we can now look and see
That probably, these are extremes of different doshas. But the point is we have to be the best version of ourselves, right? The Vata runners, the sprinters, can't be the best Kapha dosha discus player, right? And the discus player can't be the quarterback. We have to be the
healthiest versions of us, and each person is going to need something unique to themselves. And so what happens when you have a family, a variety of people with different needs? Do you cook 5 million meals a day? No. In Ayurveda, you would cook a template meal, and people would add on the uragai or the ghee or whatever. So let's say you have Melissa McCarthy person in your house with that metabolism. So a kapha person will obviously need less matar paneer and maybe more steamed broccoli on the plate and not so much oil. And then you have a Vata child, a Taylor Swift, who you don't want to become anorexic. So, that person might need to put extra rice and more curry, maybe less, more easily digest protein. But there's a way to make a one template meal and have things added on. And interestingly, Venus Williams, she's kind of like, to me, she's like a Pitta person. She had terrible Sjogren's disease. It's an autoimmune syndrome. She couldn't play the U.S. Open in 2011. So the only thing that helped her was going on a raw food vegan diet for 7 months, and then she went back playing tennis. She eats a little meat now. She's adjusted her diet, but she's an example, just as Tom Brady is an example of people who are aging slowly, right? He played football for a long time, and he paid attention to his diet, very plant-based, unlike other football players. So with these, in Ayurveda, we do believe in genetics. So that's your prakriti, what kind of Vata, Pitta, Dosha ratio you have. And then we believe in vikriti, that your environment has a lot to do with disease.
So Agni is another thing that's really important to our health. So if you have a Mandagni or even a Tichagni, like your Agni is
the food in your mouth
when you're not hungry, then that food gets fermented
and it turns into ama. So day in and day out, if you're eating when you're not hungry, that is going to go somewhere maybe, and it's going to create
chronic bronchitis
or something like that.
So yes, we're having food samples and you might have ate, so this is an exception to the rule. So you're going to be eating when you're not hungry,
but then you can detox later. So some people, they have too much fire, which would be like a pitta individual. And if they're like starving themselves and then they have their hot, spicy meal in the evening, that also creates ama. It burns their food, and before they know it, day in and day out, it gets lodged and maybe they get gout. So that's how Ayurveda thinks about disease. And a lot of people are having reflux and acid indigestion, but it really isn't because most of us aren't having too much acid, we're having too little. So our food is getting fermented. And then we give the patient Protonics or Nexium, these acid blockers, and they temporarily feel good. But if they don't change their diet and they keep on taking these medicines, it can cause B12 deficiency, it can cause magnesium deficiency, it can wreak a lot of havoc. So I'm not saying to get off these medicines, but to figure out how you can reduce them through your lifestyle, or talk to your doctor about that. So Agni is really important for your health and your longevity. What else can we do to eat when we're hungry, and only when we're hungry, and consume?
don't consume cold water. You know, I like to boil my water in the morning and drink from that vessel. Maybe I'll put, cumin,
Fennel, coriander, or whatever.
But it's
even in conventional science, they're realizing that is very good for the digestive system,
especially to recover from
surgeries.
Don't drink a ton of water before you eat.
Because if you're thinking that that's a weight loss plan, it's not. It's the opposite. So let's say you chug a lot of water. You've now washed your agni. You've washed your gastric fires, and that food that you're going to eat is going to become ama.
So it's always good when you're eating
to have maybe,
5-6 ounces of water. Don't drink tons of water before a meal.
And things to help get the hunger in you, you can do sun salutations. There are chair sun salutations, all sorts of different sun salutations. Kapalabhati or Bastrika, for certain dosha types, that's really good to do to really get that gastric fire going. Nauli, really, if you practice this,
it can really churn all the little tubes and tubules, little pancreas and liver. Have you ever seen Nauli, where that rectus abdominal muscle is just going from back and forth like a rinse and spin cycle?
So I like to take a little bit of ginger and put it on lemon juice and rock salt, maybe 10-15 minutes before I eat. If your dosha tolerates that's really good to create hunger. But we talked about this before. Get your main meal to be when you're hungry and in the daytime, and your evening meal to be very light. Even modern science says front-loading calories is really important. We know about this. Eating on the floor is an extremely healthy thing to do. And a lot of people do it around the world.
And
so Japanese people comfortably sit in Vajrasana, but they can because they sit on a little stool. I mean, if we're eating on the floor, it's
probably better to be in Sukhasana. But you can tell that, when you have that action of bending forward and eating, your stomach is not going to fill as much.
And it could be just 100 extra calories that you're eating less, but if you multiply that by a year, it makes a difference. And, traditions all around the world knew this. It's not that they couldn't afford a chair, right? This dynasty probably has golden thrones, but they're eating on the floor. And Emperor Akbar is eating on the floor. He has probably a lot of chairs. And these Israeli kids, family, are eating on the floor. Persians are eating on the floor for a reason. There's Jesus, he's eating on the floor, Last Supper. And so I don't think we have to go and sit in the kiddie table at Thanksgiving, but maybe what we could do is raise our chair up when we're at work, and then just practice eating and bending forward. Maybe more often than not, eating on the floor, having a picnic dinner at home. Also, I think we should bring back the whole, saying a puja before meals, and focusing and getting to the right state of mind, not being preoccupied. This was a very interesting study They took volunteers and they made a shake. It was 300 calories. And to one group, they said that this was just a health shake and it was 140 calories. And to the other group, they said it was a 620
dessert shake. It's very nutritious. And the ones that believed it was a dessert shake, their hunger hormone decreased more.
So what we think does matter. And so, I think we do a good job of this. We know our, prayers and mantras. We do a good job of this. Have you ever been at a party, you're starving, and then you're eating the appetizers and you're like 70% full?
But you want to wait for the main meal, and it doesn't come. 2 hours later, it comes, and you're not hungry anymore. Does that happen to you? It happened to me.
And so that's the beauty of eating slowly. When we eat slowly, it lets our the hormone called leptin float up into our brain and say, don't give me any more food. So slowness is important. So we talked about, filling your body only 2/3 full, your stomach 2/3 full. 1/3 with solid, 1/3 with maybe like liquid or a little water, and 1/3 nothing. But how do you know when you're 1/3 full or 2/3 full? It's not like you have a dipstick
To put in your mouth.
So ingeniously, Ayurveda has recommended,
when you're paying attention, pay attention to the first belch. They strongly believe for a long life, eat 80% full.
And they really take that seriously. And it's very interesting because advantage. So this is just so much evidence to say it's really diet and how we eat. I love Michael Pollan's books. Eat food, not too much, mostly plants. That's more or less is the short answer to the supposedly incredibly complicated and confusing question of what we humans should eat in order to maximally be healthy. And then
probably we know this, don't fill your plate with more food than you can take with your cupped hands, except M&Ms do not count.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought about that. Also in Ayurveda, they recommend if you're going to have...
it's not something we learn, right? These tastes are definitely part of our physiology and our mental health. So I have lots of patients who, they look like Taylor Swift. They run all the time. They eat arugula salads. They feel horrible. They're eating bitter greens. So, that Taylor Swift vata dosha should really be eating, more
cooked food, more unctuous, pitta dosha like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
If he's eating too much meat, alcohol, salt, although I know he's a vegan now, but this will be bad for him, make him more angry. Kapha dosha, too much of these sweet, salty, sour foods, that will cause, heaviness and depression.
We talked about,
astringent foods. These are some examples of astringent foods.
Since we don't really talk about astringent, I wanted to put this slide up because we know what sweet and salty and sour,
bitter and spicy is. Also in Ayurveda, food combining is very important. You wouldn't want to cook these two vegetables on a pan because they cook at different speeds. Same way, you don't want to cook the wrong things in your stomach. It's complicated, so I only want to focus on fruits, when to eat fruits. So you can see here that fruits digest really quickly.
Within half hour. And,
things that are heavy like cheese and meats, they take 3 to 4 to 5 hours to digest. So if you were, let's say you're having
puliara, you had a water, if you
protein, but it should be more vegetarian-ish.
And less carbs.
And so their Mother Paneer could be with a side like a chapati and less oil. And so that, oops, wait a minute. No. I'm almost done. Okay, so kapha, she could have less of the Mother Paneer and more steamed broccoli on her plate, and maybe her little bit of grain would be buckwheat, not buckwheat. I'll get back to that. It's barley.
So this is a great book. It was written by a physician and a chef and a patient.
I like it. It's very easily explained. And then in the back, it has a chart for, depending on your dosha type, what vegetables you should favor, what grains you should favor, what fruits you should favor, what spices you should favor. And so, yeah, it gives even more detailed look at what is best for your dosha type. So I do want to talk a little bit about the potato. Potato is actually very good for kapha, like Melissa McCarthy, as long as it's not fried
or it doesn't have oil. Potato is excellent carb.
And in fact, in modern science, the potato has the highest satiety index, meaning that if you bake or boil that potato for the
same amount of calories, it will fill you up for a longer time.
It's an excellent carb as long as it's not Pringles, which is fried in oil, but it's like a baked potato,
you know, with some
plant-based stuff on it, nothing oily. I mean, you could even imagine if you're hungry, you're starving, you know, how many of those could you eat versus how many Pringles? I can eat 1,000 calories of Pringles. I can't eat 1,000 calories of that potato.
And a good example of this is Penn Jillette, the famous magician in Las Vegas. He had a show, Penn and Teller. Do you guys remember him? Very overweight. So 10 years ago, he went whole food, plant-based, vegan, and he used potato as his mechanism to eat. Now, this is a guy who loved his steak and fries and his beer. And
he's still on this diet, and he feels fabulous. His mood has changed. His blood pressure's normal now. He says he now believes in God. It's very strange. But anyways, so it's important. Our microbiome, we're 90% bacteria and microbes. We're only 10% human. So what we eat changes what grows on our body and in our body. So when we eat food, right, we're almost like compost machines, right? If you eat bad food, that soil composts and produces bad bacteria. And if you eat really healthy, high-fiber food, it forms really good bacteria. So I'm just going to end with this, and we can open for questions. But it really is, I think, about approaching your life like a gardener would. It has to be with daily, loving attention, tenderly. And the problems, they should be like fun, you know, problem solving, little letting go. So on that note, I'd like to thank you guys for, this is where my starting point was. You know, I watched Forks Over Knives on Netflix
after my father died.
And I decided to get their cookbook, and I started cooking everything whole food, plant-based, no oil.
And then I got ideas of how to make my own Indian cooking, whole food, plant-based, no oil. The recipes are not exactly alike, but I'm so used to now eating things with less sugar and less
salt, and I would highly recommend learning to cook this way.
And then you can adjust or add in
what you feel is right for your culture, for your body type.
So, anyways,
thank you so much for coming.
And are there any questions? Or yes.
Thanks.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought about that too. It's an excellent point. You know, if you think Kerala, they not only use coconut oil and less ghee and less groundnut oil. I mean, or less of the processed oils. They're also using coconut, right? Everything's
full of coconut, and even their grains. They have so many variety of grains, and so yeah, I definitely think they've retained something that is Ayurvedically still a little stronger in
that area than the rest of the world. Maybe, I don't know, but yeah, I thought about that. It's a good point.
Plus, their literacy rate is also the highest.
Yes, you're right too. Their land is lush. Their literacy rate is higher.
98%.
Right. So good. They're a great example of what we can all be. You know.
I'd like to comment a little bit on probiotic and the gut health. I think that would be important for everybody to know how the gut health is so important and the role of the probiotic.
Oh, definitely. So if we go back to the last slide, I might have skipped over that a little bit. But, you know, your body is 90% microbiome, right? It's yeast and bacteria. And genetically, the hologenome, it's 99% genetically
bugs, and we're only 10% our own human cells. And what we eat has everything to do with our psychiatry and our physiology. So they've done so many experiments from mice all the way to human beings where, you know, you can take somebody who has autism, like they induce autism in mice, and they've seen this in human beings. And when you change their gut profile, their symptoms can improve or get worse depending on. So yes, it's a bidirectional connection. It's like how we think affects what grows inside, and how we what we eat. You know, if we're eating high fiber, non-processed, it's your gut bacteria are going to release chemicals and communicate with your brain, and so
it's super important. And I wouldn't put so much attention to taking
some kind of pill, or, you know, it's like if you want to grow good bacteria, if the soil isn't ripe and it's not have the food for the bacteria, they're going to die. So it's really about the food quality. Yes.
That's a great question. So, you know, online, like for example, that book that I recommended, Eat, Taste, Heal, they'll have a simple questionnaire. And even online, you can find dosha questionnaires. And I would do the questions
with somebody you trust.
Do the questions with somebody who will give you honest opinion, because you might think your hair is curly and long, and they're like, no, actually it's,
you know, it's straight and short, right? Or you might think you behave in a one way, but then, you know, so
they are helpful to a degree. Or you could always see a Vaidya. There are lots of Ayurvedic Vaidyas online, Kerala Ayurveda, and they can do online consultations. I do online consultations too. Not to plug that, but hey, it's an opportunity. But yeah, it is important to, I would say, for everybody to find out
about their dosha types. Yes.
Question. What style, for example, is it boiled, cooked, steamed versus normal sauteed? Which one of the three are kind of healthier?
Right. So according to food science, steam cooking is the healthiest form of cooking. Then after that is boiling, if you drink the boiled water. Because when you boil, all the nutrients, a lot of the nutrients are going into the water.
So steam, and then roasting, grilling, and then frying is bad. So especially with meat, it's, you know, the grilling and the, you know, if you eat meat, steam it instead.
Yeah.
What's the Ayurveda's opinion about fasting in general?
Oh, that's a great question. So always the answer is going to be, it depends on who you are. So if you have a Taylor Swift Vata dosha, they really shouldn't be doing water fast, juice fast. We have to be very careful with them. So they could do a khichdi cleanse. You know, that would be pretty safe to do for like 5 days. If they're healthy, they could do that. But then they have to also ask why they're doing that. But so for a person with pitta, they shouldn't do like full fast either, because they get a lot of acid. So they might do khichdi cleanse, or they could do like a fruit, maybe a broth fast.
Kapha people, so Melissa McCarthy, they're pretty hardy. You know, kapha, if a kapha person takes really good care of themselves, they can live the longest. They have that kind of health. But they can do more rigorous fasting. But it also depends on the age. and what the patient's problems are. But yeah, fasting is an amazing thing to do.
Excellent talk. I learned a lot. So just coming back to this classic South Indian cooking, a lot of our dishes call for tofu or tempering. So are you saying is it better to do little ghee and do the tempering than the oil?
That's what I do for, yes, like I do very little and I temper my spices with ghee. I debated about buying an oil press, but it's expensive. I don't want to buy like this much flaxseed to get this much. But yeah, roasting and tempering, very little oil. I will tell you a little hack. I'll buy the jar of peanut butter that has, it's just plain peanuts, no sugar, no nothing. And you know how it separates, that oil separates? That's my oil. If I have to make some chutney or a vegan person's coming to my house, I will collect that stuff. And then the other, the peanut, I use in a paste for some like Asian salad dressing. And I do the same thing with tahini, like that it separates that sesame seed, the oil nicely separated there.
It's the lazy girl's version, right?
So you're saying ghee is better than vegetable oil, canola oil, or sesame oil even?
So I will say emphatically, ghee is better than Penn's oil.
I'm not going to call these vegetable oils anymore. It's better than pencil. But if you had coconut oil,
I mean, it has its place, and it depends on your dosha. I don't think I'd be so averse to using a little bit of coconut oil. Or if once in a blue moon we want to fry and make chutneys,
maybe I'll fry in ghee.
you know, it's expensive, but if you're going to only do it once a year, what the heck? But olive oil, if I'm in Icaria, Greece,
and that guy is freshly making it, and I'm collecting it, and I'm going to consume that oil in measured amounts in the next couple days so it doesn't go rancid. Yeah, I'll eat that, but that's not what we're getting. For sure, that kind of real oil would be like $100 a bottle.
Sesame oil is recommended in Ayurveda. What is your opinion?
It depends on who you are. So for somebody with pitta dosha, eating sesame oil, it might be too heating. But if you're kapha, it's pretty good. And if you're vata, because both of those are cold. Kapha is mud, vata is Antarctica. So they could do some sesame oil if you know it's good quality sesame oil, right? So sometimes if I'm making awakai, which is a mango pickle, and I don't know how
true it is, but I tend to use the dark bottle, little Asian sesame oil that smells like sesame, because if it smells like it, I figure, okay, it's more likely to be it. But yeah, but for abhyanga,
yes, especially as I get older, vata dosha settles in, I will definitely use sesame oil, yeah, for that.
I find the Vrindavan ghee is really good because they raise their cows in open field, and you can find it in some of the grocery stores. Yeah, Hare Krishna Vrindavan.
can you order it online?
I think you can.
You can?
They can mail it to you.
Good. And is it cultured? Just that? Or is it?
I'm not sure, but it smells better than any other ghee I tried.
It's a
Patel Brothers.
Mm.
Oh, you're talking about the Vrindavan? Oh, well, I don't really know. But I know Vrindavan, I have been there, you see the cows watering.
Yes.
Oh, wait, we'll take the gentleman and then we'll take you.
Answer.
Do I make ghee? Yes. Yes. No, I always make my ghee at home, and I am trying to learn how to. I want to get there where I'm going to go to find the cow. I know there are places that sell raw milk,
And but it's steps for me. But I think it's okay to.
we have to be practical, right? We're all working and running around, so we have to triage, right? It's better to buy store-bought ghee
To me than to buy.
processed oils.
If
If we don't have time, we should at least do the main things. I wouldn't. I mean, it's because if you burn the ghee, that's toxic. Throw it away.
I don't have a thermometer. I put it on very low heat.
And I'll just be folding clothes, just waiting. It takes me a long time, and it just when I stop hearing it splitter and it's a golden color.
Then okay, I'm done. But yeah, I don't think.
Oh yeah. I mean, you put your ghee in a nice cabinet, cover it up, and yeah, of course, yeah. Then I can cook with it. Yes, definitely. It's such a genius invention. Yeah. Oh wait, I'm sorry. I think this lady and then both.
I'm asking about air fryer. It has become like a way of working people, college students. So how does that compare to baking, frying, boiling? Where does it go? Air fryer. Using less oil.
I think steaming is still better.
Yeah. So
Because I'm going to say that the air fryer is kind of like a roasting thing, but I'm not sure. I don't know.
no, for vegetables like you won't eat Karela unless it's cooked in a crispy.
Right, it's crispy. So, right. So yes, certainly it's going to be better than using the current ways that we're doing.
Yeah, like oil and
Right.
cheese and it and making it like a gravy part.
Right.
So if you fry it with some olive oil and air fry it,
Yeah.
you bring like a Karela.
Right, but then you have to be careful with the oil, right? If that's the problem. So what I do is when I'm making wankai kora, because you don't want that soggy, you want to have a nice kind of texture on the skin. I'll put it in the oven, and
I'll cover the lid and put it ajar, and then I'll just peek and see is it soft, and then once it's soft, I might lift the lid so that the water evaporates just a little, so you get that kind of
texture, and then I'll take that and then I might roast it on the pan to get that crispy. It's not time consuming, you just have to play around.
And does it work for French fries like potatoes when you bake it, boil it and bake it? No oil?
Yeah, French fries are easy. If you take parchment paper and you heat your oven, put them in, they turn golden brown, and the magic is in the sauce. Like I'll make some nice, delicious sauce and dip it. I don't miss the oil. I don't.
Instead of deep frying,
Yeah.
alternate.
No, yeah. Because that will make you sleepy, like. I just.
You're welcome. So I guess we can keep on with questions, but do you think we should serve? Maybe we'll take one or two more questions, and then maybe we can pass it back, and then we can serve the food. So. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And then the second thing is about the dairy product, milk,
Yeah.
especially in US. The milk, I've heard and I've also seen that there are different types of milk you get, like the A2 milk and the regular milk. Back in India, obviously, pretty much every house had cow.
Yeah.
Right? So you get the milk. So that was the purest way of getting the milk.
Yes.
Now that what we get, I'm saying
You're right. So again, the answer is it depends on the dosha, right? For me, I can tolerate some dairy. I'm fine with it. But there are some people they should be not eating any of this dairy. Some people they can do the A2. Some people they can do the goat milk. Some people that So yes, those are things. But for me, like the point is, if we're only focusing on the milk, but we're still frying, we haven't done anything.
yeah.
That is like my battle ground. I'm going to die on that.